Personal Log Ambassador Alex Tran-Terran. Representative to the Interplanetary Council Entry 2187. They're still watching us. Every species on the Council has their assigned observatory satellites orbiting Earth, monitoring what they call our aggression patterns. It's been 3 standard cycles since humanity joined the stars, and we're still treated like the unpredictable child at the adults' table. Yesterday, during the Subcommittee on Emerging Civilizations, I caught First Minister Virelius whispering to his delegation something about the dangerous apes. I pretended not to hear, but honestly, I'm getting tired of this. My predecessor warned me, this position would require patience. Interspecies diplomacy moves at glacial pace, she said. What she didn't mention was that I'd spend most of my time trying to convince advanced civilizations that humans aren't just savages with spaceships. I should clarify that I don't blame them entirely. Our history isn't exactly pristine. But what these spacefaring species fail to understand is context. They see Hiroshima without understanding World War II. They witness our violent entertainment without grasping catharsis. They observe our militaries without comprehending deterrence theory. It's exhausting. The Virelians are the worst offenders. A militaristic species that expanded through conquest until they reached civilizations capable of pushing back. Now they've settled into an uneasy peace with the Council, but they remain convinced that every new species harbors conquest ambitions like their own. Their First Minister Virelius, with his 12-foot frame and ceremonial battle armor, he never removes constantly, warns the Council about humanity's inevitable expansionist phase. Then there are the Felixari, who present themselves as the intellectual counterbalance. 6-limbed academics with photographic memories and no concept of intuition. They pride themselves on perfect logic and emotional detachment. Their lead researcher, Scholar Zelofine, has submitted no fewer than 27 reports analyzing human behavior, all concluding that we are dangerously unpredictable due to emotional contamination, of logical processes. Between the two of them, humanity has been painted as either would-be conquerors or irrational loose cannons. Neither is accurate, and both are insulting. Which brings me to today's council session. The Terran representative requests the floor announced the floating orb that serves as both translator and moderator. My translator earpiece buzzed with 6 different language conversions simultaneously. Granted, rumbled head counselor Zeth R., a gaseous entity contained in an environment suit that resembles a walking aquarium. I stood adjusting my formal diplomatic uniform with the Terran United Nations emblem and approached the central podium. The chamber fell silent, all 23 species of the Council directing their various sensory organs toward me. Honored Council, I began for 3 cycles. Earth has maintained peaceful relations with all member species. We've contributed technological innovations in sustainable energy, provided cultural exchanges, and maintained all treaty obligations. Yet I continue to hear whispers and see reports characterizing humanity as a threat. First Minister Virelius shifted in his massive seat. The Felixari delegation's antennae twitched in perfect synchronization. With respect, I continued, I believe these characterizations stem from fundamental misunderstandings about human nature. We are neither simple conquerors nor irrational actors. Human complexity cannot be reduced to single variable equations. Scholar Zelofine raised one of her 6 appendages. Ambassador Tran, our analysis is based on empirical observation. Your species demonstrates the widest aggression variance ever recorded. You alternate between extraordinary compassion and horrific violence, often within the same individuals. This is not interpretation. It is data. I nodded. The data isn't wrong, Scholar. Your conclusion is, this variance isn't a flaw. It's our defining characteristic. Humans contain multitudes. We're capable of both great darkness and remarkable light. First Minister Virelius made the guttural sound his species uses for dismissal. Pretty words to disguise dangerous instincts. The Viralian Imperium has encountered many species that speak of peace while preparing for war. Then perhaps, I suggested carefully, both your perspectives require practical demonstration rather than theoretical debate. The chamber stirred. Head Counselor Zeth R's gaseous form swirled rapidly inside his containment suit, indicating interest. Elaborate, Ambassador Tran. A controlled experiment, I proposed. Both the Virelians and Felixari claim to understand humanity. I suggest they each conduct one interaction with Earth without my interference to test their theories. After all, true science requires empirical evidence, not just observation. The council chamber erupted in overlapping conversations. The Virelians' tactical officers huddled around First Minister Virelius, while the Felixari delegation's antennae vibrated in what I recognized as their version of excited discussion. Head Counselor Zeth R raised a manipulator appendage for silence. An intriguing proposal. What parameters would you suggest for these interactions? Simple, I replied. Each delegation may send one message to Earth through official channels. The content is entirely their choice. They may analyze the responses however they wish. The only restriction is non-interference from me or any other council representative. First Minister Virelius stood abruptly, his battle armor clanking. The Virelian Imperium accepts this challenge. We will demonstrate the true nature of humanity when confronted with superior force. Scholar Zelophine's voice was calm, measured. The Felixari Consortium also accepts. We will design a proper psychological analysis that will definitively map human aggression patterns. Then it's settled, I said, keeping my expression neutral, while internally calculating the numerous ways this could backfire. You may proceed at your discretion. The council will reconvene in one standard cycle to discuss your findings. As I returned to my seat, Ambassador Krill of the Aquarii leaned toward me, his bioluminescent skin pulsing with what I'd learned to recognize as concern. Ambassador Tron, he whispered, voice bubbling through his hydration mask. Are you certain this is wise? The Virelians are not known for subtlety, and the Felixari can be invasive in their research. I offered him a small smile. Sometimes the only way to change a misconception is to let it crash against reality. And if their misconceptions are validated, Krill asked. Then I'll have been wrong about my own species, I replied. But I don't think I am. As the session adjourned, I caught First Minister Virelius staring at me with his 4 crystalline eyes. He made a gesture that his species uses to indicate anticipated victory. I responded with a human gesture of my own, a simple smile. Let the experiment begin. Personal Log Ambassador Alex Tran, entry 2188. The Virelians moved quickly as expected. Their message to Earth was transmitted through the official United Nations Interplanetary Communication Channel exactly 6 hours after the council session. I wasn't supposed to know its contents, but I have my sources. The translation read, Attention! Humans of Earth, this is First Minister Virelius of the Virelian Imperium. Your planet and resources have been deemed valuable to our continued expansion. Surrender within one standard cycle, or face obliteration. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force. Subtle as a sledgehammer. Exactly what I'd expected from them. The Felixari, meanwhile, took a different approach. They transmitted a detailed psychological survey containing over 500 questions designed to measure what they called aggression equilibrium and ethical consistency. The survey was distributed to random human subjects worldwide through the UN's Civilian Engagement Network. And now we wait. I'm not supposed to interfere, but I can't help feeling a mixture of anticipation and dread. The Virelians expect humanity to either cower or respond with impotent threats. The Felixari expect contradictory answers that confirm their theories about our irrationality. Neither understands what they're about to encounter. Personal Log Ambassador Alex Tran, entry 2189. It happened faster than even I anticipated. This morning, alarms blared throughout the council station. Emergency protocols activated sealing off sections and initiating defense systems. I was escorted by security to the main chamber where I found utter chaos. The Virelian delegation was in disarray. First Minister Virelius was shouting at his officers, his normally imposing figure somehow diminished by what appeared to be panic. On the central display, I could see their flagship, a massive planet-destroying behemoth, with systems failing and internal lights flickering. "What have your people done?" Virelius roared when he saw me stomping toward me with such force that the chamber floor vibrated. Head Counselor Zeth R. interposed himself between us, his containment suit's defensive shields activating. "First Minister, explain the situation immediately." "The humans," Virelius sputtered, "they responded to our message with an image." I raised an eyebrow. "An image?" "A simple visual file," explained one of the Virelian technical officers, his voice steadier than his superiors. "Our systems scanned it for weapon signatures or encoded threats as per protocol, found none, and displayed it on our command center view screen." "And?" prompted Counselor Zeth R. 3 minutes after display, our primary AI began experiencing anomaly," the officer continued. 12 minutes later, it had spread to all networked systems. 27 minutes after that, we lost control of propulsion. Currently, life support is operating on isolated emergency protocols, but all major systems, weapon shields, navigation are compromised. I tried to keep my expression neutral, but couldn't help asking, "What was in this image?" Before anyone could answer, Scholar Zelephine burst into the chamber, all 6 of her limbs moving in what appeared to be agitation, an unprecedented display from a Felixary. "The results are impossible," she declared, her normally measured voice pitched higher. "Completely contradictory. Statistically, impossible." Head Counselor Zeth R's containment suit emitted a calming pheromone into the chamber. "One crisis at a time, Scholar. The Virelian flagship has been compromised." "You don't understand," Zelephine insisted, her antennae quivering. "The survey results, we've never encountered such variants. The same human who answered they would sacrifice their life for a stranger also indicated they enjoy violent entertainment. Individuals who scored highest on compassion metrics also demonstrated detailed understanding of tactical warfare. A pediatric medical professional who saves children daily also participates in simulated combat games." I couldn't help it. I started to laugh. Every alien eye in the chamber turned to me. Ambassador Head Counselor Zeth R's voice had turned stern. "Do you find these situations amusing?" I composed myself. "Not amusing, Counselor. Illuminating. Both delegations are experiencing exactly what I hoped they would: first-hand evidence that humanity cannot be understood through simple models." First Minister Virelius slammed his armored fist on the nearest console, crushing it. "Your species attacked a Virelian flagship. This is an act of war." "Did we?" I asked calmly. "You sent a threat of planetary annihilation. We responded with an image. If your systems weren't properly secured against basic cyber attacks, that's hardly Earth's responsibility." "What was in this image?" repeated Counselor Zeth R. One of the Virelian technicians activated a portable terminal. "We can display it here, though our analysis shows no conventional threat vectors." The image appeared on the chamber's main screen, and I immediately recognized it. It was a meme, an ancient one by internet standards, dating back to the early 21st century. A simple image of a cat with deliberately misspelled text. Beneath it was a small block of text that appeared to be nonsensical keyboard characters. Several council species looked confused. The Mavorians covered their optical sensors as if expecting an attack. Nothing happened. "That's it?" asked Counselor Zeth R. "The text below the image contains a specially formatted code," explained the Virelian technician. "When processed by our translation systems, it executed a program that overwhelmed our pattern recognition algorithms, creating a cascading failure that—" "You got rickrolled," I interrupted, unable to help myself. Well, a vastly more sophisticated version, but essentially the same concept. Explain this term, demanded Virelius. An ancient human practice of hiding unexpected content within seemingly innocent links or files, I said. Originally harmless, though annoying. What you experienced was likely a highly advanced version designed specifically for your AI architecture. Impossible, sputtered the technician. Our systems are the most advanced in 7 sectors. No primitive virus could. Did you scan Earth's networks before sending your threat? I asked. The technician fell silent. If you had, I continued, you might have noticed that Earth has been defending against cyber attacks for centuries. What you call primitive technology has evolved through constant warfare into something uniquely resilient and adaptable. Our systems aren't as advanced as yours, but they've been battle-tested in ways yours haven't. I turned to Zelephine. And what the Felixari are experiencing is the same phenomenon, just in psychological rather than technological form. Human contradiction isn't a flaw, it's our nature. We contain the capacity for both extraordinary compassion and calculated violence, often within the same individual. The chamber had fallen silent. Even First Minister Virelius seemed to be processing this information. Ambassador Head Counselor Zeth R. said finally, the Council requires an emergency session to address these developments. I suggest you prepare to explain humanity's methods in greater detail. As the delegates filed out, Ambassador Krill lingered beside me, his bioluminescence pulsing with what I now recognized as the Aquari equivalent of amusement. You expected this, he observed. I shrugged. I expected something like it. Humanity has a long history of responding to existential threats with unexpected creativity. And the survey results, also predictable. We're contradictory by nature. That's what makes us human. Krill's hydration mask bubbled as he made his species' laughing sound. The Virelians and Felixari were right about one thing, Ambassador Tran. Humans are dangerous, just not in the way they thought. I smiled. We can be, but only when provoked. The emergency session is in 6 hours, Krill said. It should be illuminating. As he departed, I checked my secure terminal. A message from Earth's Joint Chiefs. Virelian systems compromised as anticipated. Defense networks on standby, awaiting further instructions. I replied with a single word, stand down. The experiment had yielded its results. Now came the hard part, explaining humanity to a council that had just gotten a taste of what we're truly capable of. Personal Log Ambassador Alex Tran entry 21-9. The emergency council session began with unusual security protocols. My position as Earth's ambassador was suddenly viewed with new wariness. 2 Gathyu security officers, massive rhinoceros-like beings, flanked me as I entered the chamber. The council had expanded to include representatives from military and intelligence divisions of each major species. Even the normally reclusive Shroud had sent an envoy, their swirling dark matter form contained in a special gravity well at the far end of the chamber. Head Counselor Zeth R. called the session to order. We face an unprecedented situation. He began, his gaseous form churning anxiously within his containment suit. The experiment proposed by Ambassador Tran has yielded concerning results. First Minister Virelius, his battle armor now supplemented with additional weapons, stood immediately. Concerning the humans, responded to a simple message with a devastating attack. Their image has disabled a Virelian flagship and compromised our entire defense network. This is not concern, it is war. I noticed his technical officer flinch slightly at the word simple, but remain silent. The Felixari Consortium disagrees with this characterization. Scholar Zelephine interjected, her voice once again, measured and controlled, though her antennae remained rigidly upright, a sign of continued agitation. What we witnessed was not an unprovoked attack, but a defensive countermeasure against an explicit threat. More concerning to us are the psychological survey results, which demonstrate cognitive patterns unlike any species we've encountered. The chamber erupted in overlapping debates. I sat quietly waiting. After several minutes, Head Counselor Zeth R. released a harmonic tone that silenced the room. Ambassador Tron, you will explain these events from the human perspective, now. I stood feeling the weight of every alien gaze. This was the moment I'd been working toward a chance to make them truly understand. Honored Council. I began. What you witnessed were two sides of the same human characteristic adaptation. When the Virelians threatened Earth with annihilation, our military and intelligence agencies responded with a precisely calibrated countermeasure, one designed to neutralize the threat without causing casualties. You call the crippling of a flagship precisely calibrated? Virelius demanded. Yes, I said firmly. Your life support systems were deliberately left functional. Your weapons were disabled. Your crew remains unharmed. Compare this to your threatened response, planetary annihilation. Which seems more measured? Murmurs spread through the chamber. I continued. As for the Felixari survey, the results appear contradictory only if you assume emotional and logical processes must be separate. Humans have evolved with both systems integrated. We can simultaneously understand the horror of violence and recognize its utility in certain circumstances. We can feel compassion for victims while studying the mechanics of aggression. Scholar Zelophine's antenna twitched. You describe cognitive dissonance as if it were a feature rather than a malfunction. Exactly, I agreed. For humans, it is a feature. Our contradictions allow us adaptability that consistent systems lack. A dedicated pacifist can become a fierce fighter when their family is threatened. A hardened soldier can show unexpected mercy. A scientist working on weapons can simultaneously advocate for peace. This sounds like madness, rumbled the Gathu security chief. From your perspective, perhaps, I acknowledged. But consider the evolutionary advantage. Species with fixed behavioral patterns are predictable. They can be manipulated, controlled, defeated by anyone who understands those patterns. Humans learned early in our development that unpredictability itself is a survival trait. I gestured toward the Virelian delegation. The First Minister sent what he considered an overwhelming show of force, a threat that should have inspired submission. Instead, he received a response he couldn't have predicted or prepared for a child's image that carried a sophisticated cyber weapon. And that is precisely why humans are dangerous, Virelius shouted. No civilized species would respond to formal communication with such trickery. I couldn't help but smile. First Minister, you threatened to destroy our planet. Did you expect a formal note of surrender in response? Before he could answer, the chamber's alert system activated. On the main display, we could see the Virelian flagship now drifting with minimal power. We're receiving a transmission from the human network, announced the communications officer. It's spreading through our station systems. Panic rippled through the chamber. Several delegates moved toward the exits. Ambassador Tran, Head Counselor Zeth R's voice carried an edge I hadn't heard before. Is this another attack? I checked my personal terminal, confused. No, I gave explicit orders. The main screen flickered, then displayed an image of Earth. A simple message appeared below it. Greetings, Council. We come in peace. Virelian systems will be restored once diplomacy resumes. The cat was just a warning shot. The message was signed with the United Nations emblem and a small image of a white flag. The chamber fell silent. You see? I said, turning to face the council. Capability and intent are different things. Humans could have destroyed the Virelian systems permanently. Instead, they disabled them temporarily and offered restoration. We responded to a threat with measured defense, not escalation. First Minister Virelius was still seething, but I noticed his posture had shifted slightly, less aggressive, more contemplative. Scholar Zelophine stepped forward. Ambassador Tren. Your argument is compelling, but incomplete. If humans possess such destructive capabilities coupled with unpredictable psychological patterns, how can the Council be assured of your species' peaceful intentions? It was the question I'd been waiting for the heart of the matter. Because peace is a choice we make daily. I replied, my voice softer now. Humans have the capacity for terrible destruction. Our history contains atrocities that shame us. But that same capacity for violence exists alongside our capacity for creation, for compassion, for self-sacrifice. I moved to the center of the chamber. The wide variance in your psychological survey isn't a flaw in your methodology, Scholar Zelafine. It's the most accurate representation of humanity you could have captured. We don't exist at a fixed point on your aggression index. We occupy the entire scale. The chamber stirred delegates exchanging glances or their species equivalent. When we love, we'll sacrifice our lives for strangers. When we hate, we can burn worlds. Our greatest strength isn't our technology or our biology, it's our ability to choose moment by moment which part of our nature to express. Head counselor Zeth R's containment suit hummed as he processed this. You speak of choice as if it were a reliable safeguard. What prevents humans from choosing destruction over peace? The same thing that's prevented it throughout our history. I answered, other humans. For every individual who chooses violence, others choose to stand against it. For every technology developed for war, others are developed for healing. We check our own worst impulses because we can recognize them in ourselves. The Gathu security chief made a dismissive gesture. Pretty philosophy, Ambassador, but it doesn't address the immediate concern. Your people neutralized advanced virilian systems with apparent ease. What defense do other species have against such capabilities? I smiled. The same defense that has always existed between species, mutual respect and diplomacy. The virilians threatened Earth. Earth demonstrated it could defend itself. That doesn't indicate aggression, it establishes deterrence. First Minister Virelius had been uncharacteristically quiet. Now he spoke, his voice lacking its usual bombast. The human countermeasure. It was not a standard virus, was it? I turned to him. No, First Minister. It was something our cybersecurity experts developed specifically for your systems, a self-evolving algorithm that identified and exploited weaknesses your engineers never anticipated. Impossible, he muttered, but without conviction. Not impossible, I corrected gently. Just unexpected. Your systems were designed to defend against known attack vectors. Ours were designed to create new ones, different evolutionary paths leading to different strengths. Scholar Zelafine's antenna had settled into a thoughtful pattern. This evolutionary divergence may explain the paradoxes in our survey results. If human cognition evolved to embrace contradiction rather than resolve it. Exactly. I nodded. What looks like inconsistency to you is flexibility to us. We can hold opposing ideas simultaneously, weigh them against each other, and make choices that incorporate elements of both. Head Counselor Zeth R moved to the center of the chamber, his containment suit emitting the formal pheromones that signaled an official declaration. The Council must reevaluate its assessment of humanity, he announced. Previous classifications are clearly inadequate. A ripple of agreement moved through the chamber. Even First Minister Virelius gave a reluctant nod. We propose the creation of a new classification, continued Zeth R, one that acknowledges the unique nature of human variance. A special committee will be formed to develop appropriate protocols for interaction with Earth and its colonies. Scholar Zelafine raised an appendage. The Felixari Consortium requests permission to develop a new metric, the Human Index, to better understand this species' unique cognitive patterns. Granted, replied Zeth R, provided that Ambassador Tran and human representatives are included in its development. I bowed slightly in acknowledgement. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. And the Virelian flagship? Asked First Minister Virelius, his voice now carefully neutral. I activated my terminal. As promised, restoration protocols are being transmitted now. Your systems should be fully functional within 6 hours. Consider it a gesture of goodwill. The session continued for several more hours with technical details discussed and committees formed. Throughout it all, I noticed a subtle shift in how the delegates interacted with me. Less condescension, more caution, mixed with curiosity. As the session finally adjourned, Ambassador Krill approached me again, his bioluminescence pulsing in patterns I recognized as impressed. "You've achieved something remarkable today," he said. "The Council rarely revises its classifications." "It's just the beginning," I replied. "Understanding takes time." "Indeed," Krill agreed. "Though I must ask, was the counterattack truly as calculated as you claimed? Or did you just happen to get lucky with the response?" I smiled. "That's the thing about humans, Ambassador Krill. Sometimes we're calculating, sometimes we're improvising, and sometimes we're just lucky. Often, we're all three at once." His hydration mask bubbled with laughter, a disturbing thought. As the chamber emptied, I noticed a representative from the Moravian Collective, a species that had thus far remained neutral in council politics, hovering nearby. When our eyes met, they approached. "Ambassador Tran." They began their translator converting their harmonic language to something I could understand. "I have a question that wasn't addressed in the session." "Of course," I replied. "What would you like to know?" The Moravian's crystalline structure shifted to indicate deep curiosity. "This weapon your people deployed, this virus. What exactly is a virus?" I paused, considering how to explain something so fundamental yet complex. In that moment, I realized we'd opened a door that couldn't be closed. Humanity's introduction to the galactic community had officially begun, contradictions and all. "That," I said with a smile, "is a very interesting question. Perhaps we should discuss it over dinner." Personal Log Ambassador Alex Tran, final entry of Cycle 2190. The fallout from what's now being called the Virelian incident continues to ripple through council politics. A new subcommittee has been formed to study human cognitive patterns, with Scholar Zelephine and a team of Earth psychologists working together to develop what they're calling the Humanity Index. First Minister Virelius, surprisingly, has become somewhat of an advocate for human inclusion in security discussions. His exact words to the Defense Committee were, "Any species that can convert an image of a feline into a weapon deserves both caution and consultation." I'll take it as a compliment. The Council has officially reclassified Earth from emergent technological civilization to non-standard cognitive species with advanced adaptive capabilities. Not exactly pithy, but a step up from dangerous apes. Most significantly, the psychological evaluation scale previously used to classify species' aggression patterns has been renamed the Human Scale, ranging from 50 complete pacifism to 150 unrestricted aggression. Humanity is the only species recognized as capable of occupying the entire range, sometimes within the same individual on the same day. As I prepare for tomorrow's formal recognition ceremony, I can't help reflecting on what this means for Earth's future among the stars. We've established that we can't be easily categorized or controlled, which brings both respect and wariness. But we've also demonstrated restraint, responding to a threat with proportional defense, rather than escalation. Perhaps that's the message I should emphasize going forward. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our capacity for violence or creation, but our ability to choose between them. We contain multitudes, as one of our ancient poets said. We are the entire scale. And if we're judged by how we respond when threatened, then I'm proud of what we've shown. Not mindless aggression or cowering submission, but creative defense and measured response. The Moravian representative has requested a full briefing on biological information systems after our dinner conversation about viruses sparked interest across several scientific delegations. Apparently, the concept of microscopic self-replicating entities that can disable complex organisms is both terrifying and fascinating to species that evolved without them. I've arranged for a team of Earth microbiologists to prepare presentations. I've also warned them to tread carefully around the topic of how we've weaponized such knowledge throughout our history. Some truths are best introduced gradually. For now, it's enough that the Council sees us more clearly, not as simple conquerors or irrational actors, but as the complex, contradictory, creative species we are. Dangerous when threatened, yes, but also capable of extraordinary compassion and insight. Tomorrow, Earth takes its place as a full Council member, not as the most powerful or advanced civilization, but perhaps as the most interesting one. And in a universe of wonders, being interesting might be our greatest strength of all. End log. Ambassador Tran, a moment please. Alex paused in the corridor outside the ceremonial chamber, turning to face the approaching figure. Scholar Zelaphine moved with the fluid grace characteristic of the Felixuri all six limbs, working in perfect coordination. Scholar! Alex greeted her with a respectful nod. How can I help you? Zelaphine's antennae twitched in what Alex had learned to recognize an intellectual excitement. Our preliminary work on the Humanity Index has yielded an unexpected finding. I thought you should be aware before the ceremony. Oh. Alex raised an eyebrow. Something concerning? Not concerning? Illuminating. The Felixari scholar extended a data tablet. We've been analyzing the psychological survey results along with historical human records. We discovered that your species' cognitive flexibility, what we initially classified as dangerous inconsistency, appears to correlate with your remarkable creativity. Alex took the tablet, scanning the complex multidimensional graphs. You're suggesting our contradictions and our innovations are linked. More than linked. Zelaphine's voice carried unusual emotion. They appear to be different expressions of the same neurological trait. Your species' ability to hold contradictory concepts simultaneously seems to enable novel connections between previously unrelated ideas. That's consistent with our own research into creativity. Alex nodded. Our greatest innovators often describe breakthroughs as connecting seemingly unrelated concepts. Indeed. Zelaphine's antennae curved forward, a gesture of profound interest. But what fascinates us is how this same trait manifests in both your highest achievements and your most troubling behaviors. The same cognitive flexibility that created your art literature and scientific revolutions also enables sophisticated deception, complex warfare strategies, and psychological manipulation. Alex smiled wryly. We contain multitudes, as I said. Yes, but there's more. Zelaphine's voice lowered. The virus your people deployed against the Virelian systems, our technical experts have been studying its structure. It doesn't merely disrupt, it adapts, it learns, it evolves in response to defenses. That's how our best cybersecurity systems work, Alex confirmed. They mimic biological systems. Which leads to my actual question, Ambassador. Zelaphine leaned closer. This biological model you call a virus, is it truly a natural phenomenon on Earth, or is it something your species created? Alex couldn't help but laugh. Scholar Zelaphine viruses have existed on Earth for billions of years, far longer than humanity. If anything, we learned from them, not the other way around. The Felixari's antennae shot straight up in what could only be described as alarm. Natural information warfare systems evolved on your planet before your species even existed. Essentially, yes. Alex nodded. Earth's evolutionary history is competitive. Zelaphine was silent for a moment, processing this. The Council should be informed of this. It suggests that even without humanity's cognitive variance, Earth itself produces naturally occurring systems of extraordinary complexity and adaptability. You're welcome to share your findings, Alex said. Though, I'd appreciate being present for that particular discussion. The concept of natural viruses has proven unsettling to several delegations. Of course, Zelaphine agreed. She hesitated, then added, one final observation, Ambassador. In our survey, we asked humans to rate their own species irresistible on an aggression scale. The results were fascinating. How so? Most individuals placed humanity as a whole much higher on the aggression scale than they placed themselves personally. They see their species as more violent than they see themselves. Alex nodded thoughtfully. That doesn't surprise me. We're often our own harshest critics. But that's just it. Zelophine's voice held wonder. Critical self-assessment at both individual and species levels, that's unique among council species. Most civilizations develop strong defensive narratives that justify their actions and minimize their flaws. Well, Alex smiled. As I told the council, our greatest strength isn't our technology or biology, but our ability to see ourselves clearly enough to make choices. Sometimes we choose poorly, but we keep trying to choose better. The ceremonial chimes began to ring, signaling the imminent start of the recognition ceremony. We should continue this discussion later, Alex said, handing back the data tablet. I believe we're about to make history. As they walked together toward the chamber, Zelophine's translator conveyed one final observation. Ambassador Tronwa, I believe the Council has underestimated humanity in one crucial aspect. What's that, scholar? Your species isn't merely dangerous or complex or creative, she said. You're evolutionarily unique. You emerged from a planetary system that produced natural viruses, predatory adaptations, and competitive information strategies, yet developed compassion, art, and self-reflection alongside them. That combination exists nowhere else we've encountered. The massive doors of the ceremonial chamber loomed before them, etched with the symbols of all 23 council species. Soon, Earth's symbol would join them. Is that a compliment, Scholar Zelophine? Alex asked with a smile. The Felixari's antennae curved in what might have been her species' version of a smile. It is an acknowledgement, Ambassador. Your people are indeed the entire scale from your biology to your psychology to your technology. We have much to learn from each other. Together they entered the chamber where representatives of civilizations spanning 12 galaxies had gathered to formally welcome humanity into their community, not as the most powerful species, nor the most advanced, but perhaps as the most surprising. And in a universe of wonders, being surprising might be the greatest advantage of all.